Alright, so I don't really remember where I stopped narrating on this last time. I think it was right after I got this kind of installed and I saw this spacing and realized, yep, I needed something else on this end, which I got. Man, I got it. Let's see if I can get it off here so y'all can see what I'm doing. So this was basically the only emergency run. My biggest error in this so far has been misjudging the distance that this tray actually extends. I didn't realize in designing it that the stock configuration for this case, for this tray, is indeed to use this slot. So I hacked the shit out of it, drilled some holes, whatever. And I don't remember if I showed you guys, but I had to cut into it with a hacksaw. And there, you can see it there, where my cut starts with the hacksaw. So it was supposed to be rounded and continued to be rounded across to this side, where you can see I also took a hacksaw to it a good centimeter. Anyway, long story short, there wasn't room to run this outbound and back to this port because it would have, let me see if I can get this guy off. This guy was on there, and it wasn't a reasonable expectation to be able to, there's the angle. So the tube would have been coming out of that circular port and wouldn't have the clearance to get around that and plugged into this one. So I got a double rotary, just so lucky that my local Microcenter had it. It's got two rotary, what the hell is it called? Angled 2x45, so it's a double 45 when you use it fully. It's a 90 degree, but in my case I actually wanted to use it to break the center line and hopefully encourage it to go upward just a tiny amount, and my goodness, does that work just fine right here. I don't know if you guys can see it there or if it's just me talking. I'm just screwing it back into where it's ultimately going to live, returning water to the reservoir. Like so, just like that in. And get this guy on there as well. Oh god. Just the generic fang that you need for the tubing and stuffs. There. So, that said, which you couldn't see a damn thing of, I think. How did I have this shit on there? I suppose something like that. Yeah, that's a ticket. Alright, so this is going to exit. And let's see. Actually do a little, yeah, that's just fine. Can y'all see any of that shit? Oh, excuse me. It's not like a one-to-one relationship. I couldn't put a hardline tube in between it, but with soft I am certain that's going to be fine, and it's going to clear 100% the GPU. Let me just unplug the, sorry, I'm just going to unplug the power to the graphics card so you can see this configuration a little better. Obviously when this was just coming straight out Now you can see what I was dealing with a little better. So this is 100% going to clear and give me a decent jumping point for that soft tube that's going to run up to this one. Right here, I think the space is super close, but you know, last minute before I did the main order, I got an extra 45 for this joint. Thanks to Crashy. Thanks, Crashy. You're the man. And yeah, I think a short run right there is going to be just fine as well. So here's the deal. This shit's going to work. That's where my head is right now. As long as this pump turns on, this shit is going to work. So, yeah. What I need to do next is probably cut the runs for the soft tubing, which is going to be awesome because it'll be another look at the it'll be a completely different look for the actual build itself when the tubing's in there. Initially I started out saying I want this project to be as cheap as possible, and therefore I'm going 100% form and rather function over form. In the world of water cooling, there is no shortage of color-coded customizations that will all ruin your wallet right and proper. So I realized I was using a white case. You know, a little bit of white tubing, which costs the same as clear tubing, could actually work on this and serve to have some artistic value alongside a little white paint. So I'm going to paint all this shit white, you know, black stuff around, and going to paint the battery white. I mean the power supply. I'm going to paint the pump and the base, and I'm going to paint some of this, and I'm going to paint the radiator and the fans. I'm going to leave the grill black. But next, I might have to cut some screws, trim these guys down. I'm really not sure. I'm wondering if that's sagging some amount. Is that screw in? Maybe that's why they don't want you to lull. Yeah, maybe that's why they don't want you to use this last run for the, I don't know. And it's sagging the smallest amount. You can see where I peeled back the bit of that bracket. I'm going to have to hit that with a hammer with a towel in between and just kind of clean that out. And then I'll touch it up. I'll probably repaint the front faces or maybe the whole tray, because it got to work out in the garage for sure. Anyway, that's where I am. The technicalities of the water cooling loop formally look like we're good to go. I'm optimistic about this curve, really optimistic. You see what the hell's going on in there? That is not a big distance for a hose. I'm glad that this is rotary, because that would not be a fun one to make, but this one might be doable. Anyway, I'll be back in a bit. We'll see what happens. Alright, so not quite time to cut the tubing yet. What I would prefer to do right now, just for the sake of fluidity of the build, is sort out this whole situation. I'm not certain that these fan grills have a correct orientation. They're what cooler guys called a garage item, which I suspect is shit they just make, and maybe they have sitting around. I have no idea. They seem pretty uniform, but the vertical cut is not consistent, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I've been having trouble lining everything up, maybe it's just because they're not like super duper flush. Actually, that's fucking off, isn't it? Yeah, you can see where the screw is supposed to go. That little, just above the left corner of my nail, you can see an arc in the metal, and that's supposed to house the screw itself. So it's, you know, I'm using this part of it for this mount. Basically, I need to cut these screws at some point. May as well, because I want to get this ironed out, like basically to the millimeter, so that I can make sure. This is my first time cutting soft tubing. I'm sure it's no big deal. I'm sure that if I cut them to what appears to be the correct size, they'll work after I tighten this whole thing down properly. But this bend here is what has me concerned. I want to make sure that it's, you know, the first cut is a good cut. I don't want to have to mess around with it. So that's where my head is at the moment. I'm not looking forward to this just because there are so many moving parts from here to here, like literally moving right now. So it's not like the thing shakes and clangs around and whatever. It's just not stable, and the weight of the pump is, well, it is stable, but like when it's actually ironed down, these brackets will keep it from moving. You can see right now it can slide up the distance of that hole. Also, I need to cut these damn things off. May go ahead and do that now. And whatever else, I think there's I thought there was some other 140 millimeter something that I needed to cut, but I guess just the screws and the outsides of the brackets. So shoot, that may be my Saturday night, using a hacksaw and grinding down that funky stuff. So yeah, I also have to flush out the radiator. Wow. So I've kind of been putting that off. Before any liquid goes in this at all, I have to flush the radiator. I don't have to. EK says that you don't have to before first run, but just based on what I've seen unpackaging it, screwing in the most basic of parts externally, I am convinced that I need to flush it out. Plus everyone, you know, I say everyone, I think I saw a grand total of one person say, you always need to flush your radiators. Basically submerge the thing in vinegar and distilled water and, you know, rinse, repeat, drain it, fill it, drain it, etc., etc. Unfortunately, I don't have a goddamn bucket that's this big. This is 480 millimeters. And I guess a bathtub, but I don't have that much distilled water. Or vinegar. Like, seriously, I'm not filling a goddamn tub with distilled water. I think I have an idea that might work. It's gonna be funky, but you know. I want to bring your attention to the profile of this fat bastard. As it stands, without this tightened down, actually this is kind of, oh, it's got some weight over here that it didn't have previously. So it should be sitting like this, flush. And to my eye, when it was vertical, it was completely flush. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and bolt this sucker down. And, you know, hopefully this doesn't bow out that way for some reason. Can't imagine it would, but, you know, this stuff's I think this is homemade. We'll see what happens. But the hardest part's behind me for sure. And at least I think so. You know, tubing, these compression fittings are pretty straightforward. You know, I'm gonna mash that down on the tubes, and there's not much else for the testing anyway. So that's where my head is, and yeah, not looking forward to messing with these screws and dealing with the alignment. Like the radiators, the tabs on the radiator are kind of indented, probably from travel. Down here where each of these screw in is actually just a metal tab, and they're all depressed down that way, away from the front of it. So on a few of them, like getting through, it was a huge pain in the ass to get through the grill, the fan, and then actually hit the proper hole. And unfortunately, because of the dip on a number of those tabs that you can't see down in here, I wasn't even able to get a number of them properly in comfortably. You know, some of them I'm sure I'll be able to get in, but it wasn't an easy fit, so I didn't mess with it here in this preliminary state. But anyway, it led to some misalignments just along the row of fans themselves. You know, we'll see what happens. I'm not too terribly excited about this, but there are cooler things on the way, so let's get it done and fill this bitch up. Oh my god.